Okay, so before we get into shooting, let's quickly talk about the setup. Now, when you do this type of photo, the key really is separating your background from your subject. When you're using gels to light the background, the most important thing is not having any light from your key light spilling onto your background, because that's going to wash out the color on your background. So when it comes to shooting gels, there's two things that you really have to keep in mind. One, the intensity or the power of the light. And the second thing is the material that you're shooting through. So the thinner the material, the lower your flash power needs to be. The thicker or more dense the material, the higher it needs to be. There really is a sweet spot when it comes to shooting flash with gels, because depending on that density of the gel that you use, and just before I forget, I'm just using just some gels that I picked up from Amazon. I have some Rogue gels, but I picked these up a couple days ago just to try them. There's like, I don't know how many is in here, 20 or something like that. And it was 10 bucks. I just got them just to try it just because they're bigger. So when it comes to shooting with the gels, there is a sweet spot on the flash power. So if you have too much power, you start to lose the intensity of the color. It starts to get washed out. And if you don't have enough power, then the color doesn't quite pop. It's not very vibrant. So there is a sweet spot, and I'll kind of show that in a minute when we start shooting. So that's that. Let's go look at the setup real quick. It's very basic. So we have two flashes on both sides, because basically what we want to do, come back to the camera here. What we want to do is we want to push that light onto the backdrop evenly. So we have two blue gelled speed lights that we're going to have going at the backdrop. And then we also have up top there, we have a speed light with a grid on it. I am using speed lights, and I have other strobes and flashes, but I often use speed lights when I shoot in my apartment here, just because it gives me enough power and they're easy. Another thing to keep in mind when you're shooting with gels on the backdrop, it is important the color of the backdrop that you use. You generally want to use white or gray. I would say white is best, because that way you get the most color intensity on the white. I use gray because that's the one that I had up, so that's what I'm going to use for the shoot. You don't want to use black. Black will chew up that color, and you will have to push more flash power through your flash to be able to light it. And then we're going to get into that problem where the flash brightness is going to be too much and your color is going to be washed out. It just doesn't make sense to use black. Don't use a black backdrop. Either use gray. If you have white, use white. If you have gray, use gray. They all work. I think that's it. So let's get a model in, and we shall start shooting, and let's see how it goes. We got a model in, so let's do some shooting. So again, the key is lighting your background separate. So let me just take a test shot and let's just see what we have. Okay, so let's just do just a test shot just to see how the backdrop looks. Okay, so if you look at that, you can see, actually, let me take another one. Step out of the frame real quick for me. Let me just take another one just so I can show you just the backdrop and show you what happens if you don't have your flash in the right spot. So you can see right there, that's our canvas. So that's what we have from just using the gelled flashes. Now, where it's important on where you place these is, if I happen to move this one in and have it, closer, let's say something like this, and we take a shot, what you're going to see is we have a hot spot right there on the right side, and that's what you don't want. And that's also what will happen if we increase the flash power. So I'm shooting on 1/4 power on both flashes. So I'm going to take that flash power up and show you just what will happen if you have too much flash power going through that. So let's take it up to, let's go up to a half and take a shot. And so you can see the difference between the two. We're really starting to lose that vibrant blue color. So let me just take it up to a full power just to show you, just to really illustrate. So at this point, you can see we went from like that nice deep royal blue to more of like an aqua teal. And so when I mentioned earlier that there's a sweet spot on flash power, that's what I'm referring to. You really have to figure out, based on the gels that you're using and the color that you're going for, what flash power you need to get that. Now, if we take that flash power down, so let's say we go down to, we'll go down to 1/16 here and take a shot. So although that works, the problem is as you start to get lower on the flash power, you start to lose the vibrance of the color. So it becomes more of a darker color and you lose the brightness of that color. So if we just take it down just a little bit more, just to further illustrate again. So now we'll go down to 164 on both. So at this point, you can see that the color is there. I have a gray backdrop, so you can still see that the color is there. But at this point, it's lost all of that intensity with that color, and that's not what we want. So again, when you're doing this, experiment. See, based on the gels that you're using and the flashes that you have, see where that sweet spot is to get that color the way you want it, where it's just the right intensity, brightness, saturation, all of that. Okay, so let me put this back to where it was. And then let's put the flash back where it was. All right, and let's take a test shot, make sure we're back to our where we want to be. Fantastic, looks good. So we're back to that nice bright blue. So let's get the model back in. Okay, so going with our inspiration photo, there were two things about that photo that we want to try to recreate in our own way here. So we have the colored backdrop, and then we have that little splash of light on the subject, and then the subject is somewhat silhouetted out. So that's where I have the speed light with the grid on there. It is important to have a grid. If I didn't have the grid on there, the light would spill from that speed light and it would go onto the background because I don't have enough separation. If you can get enough separation between your model and the background, then you don't necessarily have to worry about gridding it. But I think if I had to guess, she's only about 2 to 2.5 feet from the seamless. So if I didn't have that grid on that speed light, it would bounce the light from the key onto the background, and then that's just going to wash out the color. We don't want that. So you basically need to be able to fire your key light and it not touch your background at all. Okay, so let's take a test shot here. Cool. Okay, so and looking at this, we have that nice vibrant blue background. We've got that key light lighting up her face. I do think it's a little hot than what I want to go for, but the gist of the photo is very similar to the inspiration photo. So you can see that just by deconstructing it, we were able to create it. So at this point, we're going to just do some shots. We're going to play around and we'll see what we can get.